Are you wondering how to bulk export all your Fusion 360 files? Well, there's not a native way to do it, but I found a way to automate the process, and I think you'll like it. Today, if you want to export a Fusion 360 file from within Fusion 360, the only option is to have the file open, go to the File dropdown, Export, and then select the file type and location. There's no native way to export entire projects or folders. As you can imagine, that would be quite an inconvenience to do for every single file. However, I found a great add-in that automates the process. There are actually 3 add-ins available that all try to do similar things. I'll link to all 3 of them, but I'm going to walk you through one called ProjectArchiver, which is the one that I've had the most success with. I've placed a link in the video description for this tutorial's resource page, where I've included the links and instructions on how to get the add-ins from GitHub. Once you have the add-in files downloaded, you'll need to head to the Tools tab, followed by the Scripts and Add-ins feature. You can also hit the keyboard shortcut Shift+S. The one I'm using is an add-in and not a script, so we'll need to switch to the Add-in tab. From here, we can select the plus symbol to add it. Simply select the source folder on your local machine, followed by the Open button. The Project Archiver will then appear in the list. We simply need to select the name and hit the Run button. Once that add-in is officially running, we'll be presented with the Project Archiver tab up here in the toolbar. This add-in differs from some of the other export add-ins because it works by the active project in your data panel. The other add-ins that I've included on the resource page all try to do every single file regardless of their location in the data panel. I found that often caused Fusion or the computer to lock up, or the add-in runs into an error that stops it from working. Now the downside is that you then have to figure out what caused the error and run the whole export again. For this add-in, we simply need to open the data panel and double-click to select one of the projects. Doing it by project means you'll have to run the add-in a few different times, but if you run into any errors, you won't have to worry about your successful exports. It also makes it easier to figure out which file is causing the error should you run into any problems. Once you choose your project, simply select the Export Active Project button in the toolbar. Within the dialog, we can first determine where we want the files to go. This will default to a Project Archiver folder. However, we can change this to our desktop or downloads folder. Second, you'll find that we can choose which file types to download. Of course, you're likely looking to get step files for their wide acceptance with other CAD programs. I'd also recommend checking STL and the native Fusion 360 file, which are both nice to have as backups. This add-in also allows us to define the document name from one of 3 options. We can use the default document name, which is the file name, or we can use the description, or we can use the part number. Both of these will be pulled from your Properties dialog of your top-level component. Preserve folder structures will export the files in addition to the folders that you have within your project. However, if we leave this unchecked, then all the files will be placed in a single folder. Last but not least, if we check the versions option, it will output the latest version number along with your chosen file name. It's also important to note that this add-in is going to export the latest version of each file. It will not export every single file version. If for some reason you want specific versions of a file, then you'll need to manually export them or promote them to the latest version and run the add-in a second time. We can then click OK, and the add-in will automatically open all the associated files within the active project. And it will export each of the selected file types to your chosen location. This may take several minutes depending on how many files you have within a given project. As you can see, this exported the files to my desktop, including the folders, names, and all the file types that I selected. Lastly, it's important to note that this is an add-in, so you may run into bugs or cryptic error messages. I want to share 2 common things that are likely to cause errors. First, make sure that none of your file names include slashes or unique characters. This likely conflicts with the add-in code, which causes the add-in to stop working. Second, if you have any empty files or even empty folders within a project, then it's going to cause an error as it cannot successfully export something that does not exist. I recommend taking a minute or 2 to browse your project beforehand and delete any empty files or folders, and change any file names if you need to, and you'll have greater success in exporting every file in one pass. Oh, and one last thing. I know many of you are upset about the recent license changes, and I have my own mixed feelings and opinions about it, but I wanted to take a minute to clarify a few things. First, I am not paid by Autodesk, nor have I ever been compensated, or will I be compensated, for them to influence my opinion. I started this channel as a way to democratize CAD education to make it accessible for anyone that wants to learn. With that in mind, the second thing is that I will still be doing these Fusion 360 tutorials right here on the YouTube channel and on my website. Whether you choose to stick with a personal use license or upgrade to a commercial license, Fusion 360 is still arguably the most powerful CAD and CAM package when you compare it to other professional choices. That's all for now. I'll have a project-based video for you next week, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and then get back to designing. Check out that 3D printing playlist in the lower right-hand corner.